Hello, I'm Ishad Aziz. I'm doing my media evaluation question 5. How did I attract an audience for my opening sequence to my film? So yeah, I'm just going to roll the film and talk about elements that would attract me. Okay, so start off with this sort of blanked shot off a wall. It's like white. It's kind of um sort of blank and it's confusing. You don't really have any point of reference or what it is, so it sort of feels sort of mysterious in a way. So that could draw an audience in, sort of make them pay attention because it's sort of anonymity and mystery to sort of situation. So yeah, movement in the first shot, sort of. It's the only movement really in the entire opening sequence, and that sort of promotes sort of like an early draw-in, I guess. There's sharp sound and representation of time, the clock. So sort of a generic sort of opening or secondary opening shot, just someone waking up, beginning their day. So film being congruent in that, and sort of the white of the bed contrasting with the darkness outside, sort of striking color contrast. So here, another thing you don't in these first few shots, you don't really see the main character's eyes or anything. And this shot, the contrast of color with the darkness on the right side and the very bright background with the dark foreground, sort of gives a striking look to the shot that draws the audience in. And also the fact that in these first few shots you don't really get any front-on clear shots of the main character. Even here, when you see his face is covered in shadow, I think that's just sort of a trope where creates sort of a mystery around the character. You see in a lot of films. Again, use of lighting here, it's very bright, sort of like almost like a lens flare, sort of giving a contrast which relates to the character in a way. So here, this sort of just the sharpness from the light last shot to the very dark this shot, sort of gives an alarming sense of time slippage that can attract an audience because it's very sharp and sort of a bit of attention grabbing. Yeah, I tried to do the whole light thing contrasty here. The very right of the screen is quite light. And here, shots out of focus, comes into focus. That could sort of draw an audience in a bit. Again, the repetition of shots is another thing. Sort of gives this weird structure, and that's one thing that I think. So upside down shot is attention grabbing because it's kind of weird. The light contrast again. So here we're again repeating the shot as one of the features of my films, something that makes it unconventional, and that could be something that attracts an audience because it sort of makes it stand out in the opening sequence how the shots repeat themselves to show, and I'm using those shots to emphasize the lack of the repetition in the character's life. So yeah, repeating of shots, this one's slightly different. You can see his face now, and this thing where you have these frontal shots of the character's face and it's in time with the music. I think this sort of the fact that it times the music sort of gives sort of a succinct nature to the soundtrack and the visuals, which sort of links up the sensory connection of the audience because they're sort of conjoining soundtrack and visuals. So again, I'm changing the shot slightly so it doesn't feel too repetitive, although the repetitive nature is sort of the point in a way. So there's just slight differences. So now the time feature is sort of just brief shots, sort of bookend the beginning and end of each day. So here he faces the out of focus shot is sort of interesting, and it has sort of a symbolism to how like a lack of meaningful structure to her life. Again, repetition of shots, the sort of cross. Now the shadow thing is also interesting. I sort of want that to symbolize sort of a loss of sort of identity almost. So that could be attention grabbing because it shows a progression from the first of those music synced shots to this one in a way. And then the very last day is very brief. It's almost like a couple of seconds, so it's just showing a degradation of character. Yeah, and then we end on the shot we began at, which gives sort of a synchronicity and mainly the cyclical nature of the film. And yeah. So mainly I feel that this opening sequence would attract an audience because of the way it's shot is rather unconventional. It sort of draws you in because it's something strange and a little bit out of the ordinary. The way it's shot, sort of the structure, the cyclical nature, and the way that the cuts become almost like jump cuts through someone's life, and the use of lighting is striking at times, especially the contrast when I try to make one side of the shot very bright and one side very dark, and in some of the shots the bottom of the shot very bright and the top very dark, so sort of give a contrast to and I think that's visually striking, which is one element that draws an audience. Also, some of the shots are synced with the music, which, as I mentioned in the commentary, I feel like that gives the synchronicity sort of syncs up the senses of an audience, the hearing and the visuals, and it sort of increases the attention I feel that an audience would pay. Yeah. So mainly I think the unconventional nature of the way it's filmed is sort of how it would attract an audience, because the audience you're going for is one that might be interested in a more unconventional type of filmmaking. So yeah, thank you. This has been my question 5 for my evaluation.